progressed?
Sure. So I first came here as a resident. I went to medical school here at UVA and started my residency on July 1st, 1984, and my very first rotation was here at the Kluge Children's Rehabilitation Center. So I met who would become my mentor, Dr. Peter Blasco, who was one of the developmental pediatricians, and I don't know, I guess the rest is history, but that kind of was my initial introduction here. I got very interested in the place, influenced by the rehab center and the patients that we took care of and the way that we did it here, and then eventually went to get further training at the University of Iowa, which was one of the stronger programs at the time. And then in 1989 I came back to join the faculty because I wanted to essentially join my teachers in providing the kind of care that they provided here. Yeah, that's a good question. I think that I liked the way that as a department we were very well integrated. Unlike a lot of places around the country, I think developmental pediatrics and the Kluge Children's Rehabilitation Center has always been integrated into all of the training programs and all of the clinical care we provide here. A lot of places developmental medicine is kind of separate, and it's not very well integrated, and none of the residents or medical students rotate through it. Here, the medical students, the residents always rotated through the Kluge Children's Rehab Center, and I think the faculty are always very well respected by the rest of the faculty, which was, I think, pretty unique. So I feel like the program has always been an integrated one, with developmental medicine rehabilitation being part of the larger children's hospital.
So different, special.
Well, I think even before it became popular, we practiced family-centered care here. You know, the idea that the child is really the focal point. The child and his family are really the center of what we're about. So in other words, the child's family is the center of his world, and therefore we as care providers need to really interact with the child in the context of family. And so that meant that on our inpatient unit, when there was a child here for rehabilitation, we would include their families as part of the rehabilitation team. We would invite them to our meetings. So it's not that we just talked about them and about their child, we would talk with them about their child. And they basically were part of the decision making and part of the whole team in terms of keeping track of the child's progress and making decisions about their care. Well, in some ways, the Kluge Children's Rehabilitation Center had its separate identity even before the larger children's hospital did, certainly within the community. And so we've been trying to build on that and take advantage of that as we move towards the battle building, incorporating us, as we've always been, really part of the whole. You know, this place was created in 1957 with this vision to provide a new kind of care for children. It has evolved over time the way pediatric medicine has evolved over time. Family-centered care has become a focus for the way we deliver care. We essentially integrated that model into care first at the Kluge Children's Rehabilitation Center, and then we exported it, if you will, down the road to the rest of the children's hospital. And so for us to move there, we're almost going full circle in terms of joining together in our efforts to provide comprehensive care for children and their families.
That's going to be a gym.
I think fundamentally is that we listened to them. You know, we recognized that the parents really knew more about their children than anybody else, and had gotten what their children needed because they understood their kids. So we learned very quickly that we could do a better job for the child if we listened to their families. And often it boils down to that passionate mother who wants the best for her child, just as any mother has, but has to fight a little bit harder for her child with disabilities. And so we learn to collaborate with families, to try to join forces and work together to help their children. I think that's fundamentally what has made the difference, or at least that's my perception of it. You'd have to ask families, but I think it's all about learning to work together in a collaborative manner rather than just, handing down a diagnosis and a treatment plan. It's more, this is what I think. What do you think? Let's talk together about what this means for your child and how we can work together to help him reach his potential, her potential.
What are you?
I would say we're fundamentally here to help them participate in their community. Participation, when I use it in this context, is kind of a buzzword. Participation really means fulfilling your social role. So for a child, that means their role as a student, their role as a sibling in the home, their role as a Cub Scout, Girl Scout, soccer player, baseball player, a skateboarder, reader, anything in the community. So it's basically about preventing disability. Disability generally now is used to refer to a condition where a child or an adult is not able to fulfill that social role. And so we're about helping them be who they can be in their communities. So being a kid. So that means helping them overcome their challenges of self-care, their challenges of communication, their challenges of mobility, so that they can do those things. Even if it means being a cheerleader for Monticello High School in a wheelchair. We've had our patients do that, for the first time ever. And so that's fulfilling the social role that matches their personality, and the wheelchair just makes it possible. Yes. Yeah, I think our community has embraced the Kluge Children's Rehabilitation Center. I think it's both the community at large and the university community. For years, we've had so many volunteers come here and help. Madison House from the UVA undergraduate campus. So many students have come and participated in programs when we had our pool open where kids could do stuff with other individuals in the community. The Shriners has been a huge supporter of our community. Every year they do a Christmas party for our kids. Santa Claus makes an appearance. They buy toys for all of the children, and then have a great party where they come and entertain our kids. Those are two examples of how our community has embraced us. One of my favorites was this local group of motorcyclists. It was a motorcycle club who every summer would have a rally and would show up usually on the other side of the building, and we'd bring all the inpatients out so they could all sit on Harleys and have their pictures taken. So it was just tremendous. The way that Pegasus, our local UVA Pegasus helicopters would support it on Christmas Day every year, that essentially Santa Claus would drop in a helicopter, stop in and deliver toys and stockings to all of our inpatient children. So I think those are examples of how the community has really embraced us and really enriched the lives of the children. Well, one of the reasons the Kluge Children's Rehab Center was originally developed was to be able to provide integrated care for children. And so we've always operated under that model here, where children with complex needs would come here and see orthopedics, would see pediatrics, would see the therapies. So what we're doing in moving to the Battle Building is taking that model to all of pediatrics. So not just children with disability or children who need rehabilitation, but children who have those needs, plus children who have chronic illness and may have needs that overlap with those. And so it's going to allow us to be even more comprehensive, so that we haven't been able, for example, one of our groups of patients, spina bifida, probably one of the more complicated groups of patients that we follow. And there were a number of needs that they have that we were never able to provide out here, which includes neurosurgery and urology. So now, going to the Battle Building, our plan is to completely integrate that clinic to include the neurosurgeons as well as the urologist, together with the rest of our rehabilitation team to meet the needs of families. And so much of our population of children now just has a lot of medical complexity. There's a lot of kids that have needs that really go across divisions, across the medical and the other therapy services that we provide, so that having everybody under one roof really will meet more needs for more children. Our services have evolved over time, and in many ways our name has evolved over time to match that natural change. So originally we were the Children's Rehabilitation Center. Then we became the Kluge Children's Rehabilitation Center and Research Institute. And now, as we move the Kluge site, we will be joining the rest of our department in the Battle Building, and we will be the UVA Child Development and Rehabilitation Center. I think that name reflects what we do, that we're taking care of kids who have developmental problems, the child development part, and continuing the rehabilitation part. We dropped the Research Institute, not because we're going to do less research, but because the overall whole, we are developing a child research center that will embrace all of that research need. So we will continue to do research. When I first joined the faculty in 1989, is when we first became the KCRC and Research Institute, and we began a pretty successful research program in cerebral palsy and in rehabilitation medicine. We're going to continue that as we move to the Battle Building. For example, we have one very active research project funded by the National Institutes of Health on constraint-induced movement therapy for children with unilateral, one-sided cerebral palsy. It's a very intensive 4-week treatment program that includes a constraint on the strong side, that is the unimpaired side, with focused intensive intervention on the weaker side. It's been very successful, and we're going to continue doing that in the Battle Building, and hopefully we'll add other research projects moving forward. My name's Rich Stevenson. I'm a developmental pediatrician. I am the chief of developmental pediatrics at the University of Virginia, and I'm currently the medical director of the Kluge Children's Rehabilitation Center, and I will continue to be the medical director of the UVA Child Development and Rehabilitation Center. Yeah, we are committed to helping children reach their healthier ever after.
Want to give it one more go with a smile?
We look forward to continuing our efforts to give children their healthier ever after.
Perfect. Got it.